editorials.com. I'm Ethan James Green.
I'm Dara.
And we are in New York City.
New York has trash and grit and it's nasty and it's gross and it's disgusting and it's fabulous and uptown and I think the mixture and the joining of those two things is every single place you go. It doesn't matter. It's even if you're uptown, there's a rat running across the street, and even if you're downtown, there's a glamorous woman walking, down Canal.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are. You're seeing it all everywhere, and I think that constant conversation and tension is for me, that's what I love about it here.
We met for the first time online.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it. I think our first interaction was on Twitter.
I did.
And the first time that we had talked to each other.
I never had a Twitter girl.
Because, or maybe it was Iris.
Okay.
I think
sure.
We Have No Style had a Twitter.
Oh, God.
Oh, sorry. And so I think I made a tweet where I was like, I am not Ethan James, the photographer, because there was a gay interest photographer that did shower pictures. And I remember you guys were like, girl, we know it's not you.
I don't remember this. Wow. That's a really pulled.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember the first time we met in person, but.
Yeah, no, I remember the first time in person.
Yeah. I guess first time. Well, I've known about you forever, because back when I was a fan of fashion and just kind of looking at magazines and runway shows online, Ethan was modeling, and this is when I was in high school, and Ethan was my favorite male model. And on Tumblr, everyone sort of, is there a fantasy football? You'd have your favorite model and you'd be like, okay, they're gonna do all these shows, and I was really team Ethan. Yeah. And no one else was. and then you started doing pictures, and then we followed each other. And then you messaged me, I think on Instagram, to come you were doing an editorial and you wanted me to come for it. But I was planning on moving to New York, and I didn't really have the money to go do a trip before moving, so I didn't come. And then when I moved to New York, really within 2 weeks, I think then we did pictures together.
Well, yeah, the first thing we did together was a Vaquera campaign.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting and you had
we were across the
texted
street.
me and you're like, I'm here, but and I remember seeing you kind of go across the street, long hair, just blown.
Yeah. Waist long hair. Yeah. We'd worked together so much where you were shooting me, and I feel I learned how to make a picture that way, and that really kind of leads into how I work now, even styling and putting clothes on other people and helping make a picture happen from behind the camera.
Yeah, as a model, you learn what to and what not to do. And if you come into fashion wanting to do something after modeling, if you soak so much up. And yeah, even now, I'll do shoots sometimes, then something will come in my head of a past experience when I was modeling, and yeah, you really take so much in.
I feel you started. You were definitely already on that path, and then I kind of, and that was so much I feel you and then a bunch of our other friends also really pushed me to move behind the camera to do it, because I was always really kind of scared too. And it was sort of at that time, I feel you weren't really supposed to be doing multiple things. It was kind of if you're behind the camera, you're behind the camera. If you're in front of the camera, you're in front of the camera, and there's no overlapping.
Yeah, if you want to be taken seriously.
Yeah, if you want to be taken seriously, then you have to give up one and move into the other. But I always felt to me, I approach all of what I do with the same process and the same approach. It's all an extension of a creative vision in my head and a feeling I have and a need to do something to make something. And so I never really saw a delineation between the two places or kind of two disciplines. But it was really you and then a bunch of our kind of collective of friends who are all creative in different ways, kind of pushing me to kind of, I don't know, take it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was fun because Dara wouldn't only style, she would do hair and makeup sometimes as well, and model. So I think we have a couple of shoots where you've done everything except take the picture. I
just feel I don't know, I'm such a student of of fashion, of beauty, of glamour. I've sort of obsessed by it and always have been since I was little. It's like playing dress up, and so all that kind of extends into all elements. It's not necessarily that like, you know, like I want to be a makeup artist or a hairstylist or anything, but I understand like what needs to happen to get to that final product, and it's kind of just putting whatever in front of you to like get that moment to happen. When I moved to New York, Ethan showed me like all these documentaries and books and about photographers like Richard Avedon and Irving Penn, and watching those and seeing the way his like collaborators work together, and it was all very fluid. It didn't mean like, oh, you were this person so you only did this. It's like those people were in front of the camera, they were behind the camera, they were doing like a hair person would be doing like, I don't know, like creative directing the picture, or the model would also be like doing her own makeup, or the stylist would be in the picture. Like it didn't matter where you were as long as it served what the final product was.
Yeah.
And that's how I've always felt about making it happen. It's if you're seeing it and you can help make it like come to that point, then that's important for you to like say your piece about it or like make it happen.
The people I was photographing who then became my friends, like they were the people who wanted to just create what I wanted to create as well. You know, like we all were here for the same reason. We all kind of had the same references, spoke the same language in a way, and you know, everyone was down to do something that felt like Vogue Italia in the park with their own clothes, and like they knew the hair, and that's I think how a lot of the collaborations started, because yeah, we were just like
playing,
doing pictures for
dress
ourselves.
up in the and I think that's how that kind of, it's I can't even remember really like what the first thing, like I'd bring a suitcase of clothes over to your apartment, and then we would put something on and break it down and put something new on until it worked, and then we'd like walk to the park and like, you know, you'd stand there like this for like an hour until your bones like were shaking, you know, until it like was it.
Yeah.
And then you'd go back and you'd change and wipe it all off and make something new.
I had been in New York for about 7 years before Dara came to New York, and I was working in fashion the entire time. I think for me, once I started doing the portraits in the park and starting those collaborations and those friendships, I was coming from fashion and exiting fashion, and it took leaving fashion to really like find the people who would become my collaborators in fashion, at least the like foundational beginning ones like Dara. This relationship is the way it is because I think back home we were similar people.
Yeah,
we were very similar.
That's true.
We were like into fashion before fashion became this cool thing. Like I remember like talking about fashion, walking down the hallway in school and getting like laughed at. Whereas now fashion is such a like cool thing. Like if you're cool, you like fashion. And like I would design my own clothes with my grandma, and like I would do photo shoots with friends after school and with my like siblings, with my cousins. And you were doing the same thing. You were doing photo shoots. You were like trying to look like the editorials. You were like the runways, like
it was like seeing this kind of, and it started not even necessarily like because of fashion. It was like looking at movies and music videos and pop culture, and like kind of being obsessed with this like idea of transformation and glamour, and kind of like seeing and wanting to know what happens behind what you see. Like the smoke and mirrors was always so exciting to me. It was kind of like, what's this magic trick? How do people do it? And I always wanted to like know how that happened. I wanted to like spoil the surprise and see like how do you become this like kind of otherworldly thing that is projected to all of us. And I think that then became that like fashion's such a like good place for that kind of stuff, because it's like this performance that happens like in silence, and it's like a messaging, it's like a way to message yourself or communicate yourself to the world without speaking. And that was always exciting to me, because I think it's even more than just making the picture. It's like the experience of making the picture. It's the emotional like crescendo that happens on a shoot when you hit that moment that we're always chasing, and we're able to do that together. And I think that's not necessarily that it's rare. I think everyone who's a creative person experiences that or wants to, but it's like everyone experiences that in a different way. And I think our rhythm for it is just aligned in some way. And so I think that's what made made it really work and make sense was that we're kind of chasing it and we would see it at the same time.
Yeah.
That you would hit that, like, it's not like sometimes you work with people and they see it and you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
And they're like,
That's
okay, we're
really
done.
great.
Yeah,
No,
and then
it's
we're
not.
done. And you don't feel like you're there.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, people keep going and going and you're like, okay, but we got it. And so it's like, I think we just like hit it at the same time a lot. And I think you just had that rhythm with certain people.
Well, it's nice like working with Dara because whenever we have a shoot and we have like the creative conversation, there's a lot of the time that we'll be on the phone or we'll meet, and I feel like the idea, we come to the table with the same idea or two separate pieces that create an idea, or maybe one person has a clear vision of what it should be, and it's always like, oh my god, that's perfect. It's like way better than what I could have thought of. To be in tune with someone like that is huge. You're nothing without your collaborators. You really aren't. Like, you could be the best photographer, stylist, but if you don't have your collaborators that speak your language, you're nothing. Look at all the great people who have led magazines or were at the top of their game, and then a shift happens and they no longer work with their like, you're nothing without your collaborators.
I think the thing about New York that's very distinct compared to the other fashion capitals or other places in the world. I mean, I think, whatever, all of them are important and there's room for other types of perspectives in different places. But I think the thing that makes New York very individual is that it, Paris has history and classicism and beauty in a certain way, but New York has trash and grit and like it's nasty and it's gross and it's disgusting and it's fabulous and uptown, and I think the mixture and the joining of those two things is every single place you go. It doesn't matter. It's like, it's even if you're uptown, there's a rat running across the street, and even if you're downtown, there's a glamorous woman walking, down Canal.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, it doesn't matter where you are, you're seeing it all everywhere. And I think that constant conversation and tension is like, for me, that's what I love about it here. And the thing that I'm so committed to, even in work, like, I think it's like, I don't love it if it's too chic, and I don't love it if it's just nasty. It's like, it needs to be both. It needs to be chic nasty.
Yeah.
And that's like, I don't know, that's really important to me.
Like, you walk out the door, you don't know who you're gonna run into, you don't know what you're gonna see.
Yeah.
Anything that's crazy is not crazy.
I mean, I feel like, because we're not from here like that, like, it's still a dream.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna be real corny about it, and I like don't care. Like, I'm like about that. Like, to me, like, fantasy is alive in my blood. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm living in that forever.
Yeah.
No one can take that away from me.
Yeah. I've had like a big shift the past year, I would say. And the biggest thing is just not to take it so seriously. And to see it for what it is in moments that I need to, whether it's like if I'm doing a commercial job, what is the point of these pictures? My first chunk of my photography career, I learned so much. I had such an incredible opportunity to work with some of the most iconic fashion editors and stylists and magazines who worked with all of my like heroes and reference points, and hearing about their experiences with those photographers. And I learned through all of those people. I think I always had a set idea of like, I need to be this, I need to be that. This person wouldn't do this, they wouldn't do that. And I think now I've learned so much about how to approach a picture, the technical moves, the like, in studio, I feel like I know all the kind of like ways to shift and how high I need to be, how low I need to be. I built like rules for myself, and I didn't even realize the box that I built for myself, but I have just broken out of it in a way. When I approach a shoot now, it's very like, why not? Let's try it. Like, I've never done that before, but that could be really cool. And I just wasn't allowing that for myself before. And already the little bit that I've done with that mindset, it feels more me. It just feels good. For me, it's like the new shift is finally just like really...
You're like letting go.
Letting go, yeah.
No, I feel that, because I think this is also like a connection point we have, is like we grew up really like obsessed with kind of like being good or something, and so there's like this obsession with kind of like living up to tradition, to following the rules in a certain way, to knowing what those rules are, even at all, or whatever. And some people don't even care and they live their life without that. But I've never been able to do that. You know, I've always been so like aware of how I'm supposed to be. And I think I agree, like this year I've like thrown a lot of that away. But I think, you know, it's like you need to kind of establish that in yourself so then you can like kind of break them in a way. And I feel like, you know, being someone who's obsessed with what the history is, you get very like tied to what those certain roles are and how they exist. And then, you know, if you have people you look up to, how they acted and they moved, and then you kind of want to mirror what that is because to you, that's what successful looks like. And I think realizing that there's like no exact way or formula behind that, you have to just kind of figure it out on your own, and letting yourself do that, mess it up a little and like kind of define what that is for you. I feel like I've always felt a big tension between like the rule follower and like the person who could literally not live in those rules at all. Like I've, you know, just by the mere existence of who I am and what I am, like I can't, you know? And so there's always this, to me, like living between those two things and having the gray area to like be someone who like is about a certain tradition and then also kind of like upend it. I don't mind, like I think living in both of them is fine. I don't know what's the first editorial that I styled and you did.
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell because the first few things that we did
was like commercial,
were like digital, like commercial jobs.
Like a bag campaign.
Yeah. What was it WSJ with Ashley?
Oh, maybe. That feels later, but it feels also.
I mean, because that was
like
a really major.
Is that that was the first big kind of thing ever. I mean, the retail therapy story is fun. That was
fun. Yeah, that was crazy.
Because it was like I had just moved to New York. The reason I sort of made all these friends on Tumblr was because me and my friends would go to these fitting rooms and try on all these designer clothes, and then we'd like post them on Tumblr, acting like we were actually wearing them and actually had them or whatever, you know. Or just like
do move.
Yeah, well, we would do like really we would make like, you know, kind of iPhone editorials out of these like clothes from like designer boutiques or whatever, because we were like, oh my god, these runway clothes are real, like I can't believe that we can go touch them and try them on. And so we just spend like an hour in the fitting room in like Nordstrom and like take all these like photos, but they would be really like, you know, like crazy. And then so then you were like, oh, we want to do that, we're gonna like build you a fitting room. But then you found, I guess Julia found this store.
Yeah, we just went to New York Vintage.
Yeah, which is it's funny because I go there all the time now to like rent clothes for shoots. And then we just kind of took over the store, and like I think you had like Yadim bleach my eyebrows, curl my hair. It was crazy.
Really like.
I had my two best friends, Iris and Cruz. They were there too because they were who I would go do these pictures in the stores with. And I was like in the window in one with a mannequin in a fitting.
Gabrielle Held was in it.
Oh, Gabrielle Held was there playing a shopkeep.
Was the
like a store clerk. And it was just kind of like, you know, very like 70s glamour, crazy. It was wild. And that was the first time I'd really like had, you know, someone have like racks of clothes there, like, you know, really getting styled and fully, you know, and it was very overwhelming and exciting.
It was fun. I think that was also like one of the, it was really exciting because at the beginning of my photo career with editorial, I was getting asked to, because I was just doing on Instagram my park portraits, and everyone was so into me just like bringing in the friends from those pictures, and we were like doing editorials, which I think was an exciting thing because it was before like the street cast thing was really taking off. So it was like people who weren't signed, but we were doing like proper magazines.
Yeah, it was really exciting.
Really exciting
because like I was at that time, I was not signed to a modeling agency. I couldn't even get them to like meet me. Yeah. Like, you know, it was sort of like, who do you think you are? Yeah. And I'd go in, I remember like when I first started going into meetings with modeling agents and stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, I just want to do fashion. I don't want to like talk about anything. I want to be a silent.
Like, you're not gonna tell, you know, like sob story.
Yeah, and they didn't get it. They were like, what? And I was like, well, look, I did all this without doing that, and like it just wasn't kind of like understood at that point. Yeah. And I think because it was sort of like, I don't know, whatever. Like, but I always saw that, why not? Why can't I?
Yeah. What feels unique?
Like compared to other people.
Oh, I think we just like I feel like I have to say less.
Yeah, it's like a silent conversation, you know, it's sort of, it's like a look even, it's like enough.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, if something's even not working, like you don't have to tell them. I like come up to you and say it, and you're like, oh, I was thinking, you know, it's kind of, it's like a finish each other sentences situation.
I don't think we've ever like both felt different about a picture too. We either both love it or we don't.
Yeah.
I don't think there's
Or
ever,
we like know what we're going for.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I think sometimes like when you're working, it's like everyone's looking at a different picture. Like hair's looking at a different picture, makeup's looking at a different picture, stylists and photographer, they're all looking for like a different position or emotion or something. And I feel like we're like aiming for the same target.
Yeah.
And when it's great with other people, that's how it is too.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like more, you know, it's like more instantly there. I just feel like you have to kind of have a vision, like whatever you want, and you can, and that is possible. Like I feel like you have to just kind of know that about yourself and about what you want to do.
I think you have to be a little delusional.
Maybe that's
Yeah, a
maybe
little
that's what I'm
bit of
talking about. I'm a little, well, I'm very delusional.
Yeah, same.
I live in that.
But I think at the end of the day, you gotta be doing this for yourself. You have to do it because it makes you feel good. You create something, and there's like, I don't know, the best way I can describe it is even going back to like the first pictures I was doing and getting like the picture and looking at the camera back and like walking away from the park and feeling like high, you know, like feeling this, like getting this fix and making me want to do it over and over again. And when I was doing that early work, I was almost like anti-fashion industry. Like I was like, I don't want to be a fashion photographer. I like, believe it or not. And I, you know, it was really like when magazines were coming to me, I was like, I don't know if this is a good opportunity for me or like the people that I'm photographing. Like, is this really worth it? Are they going to let me do what I want to do? Are they going to make me do something like that I don't want to? Like, and if not, I'm not doing it. And I know that what I'm doing has value, and I will hold on tight and only give it to places that are going to properly understand it and give space for it to just be what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
I think you have to just like really believe in what you're doing.
It's having a strong foundation, strong sense of like self, and a strong sense of like your creative vision. And I feel like it's like you can't not do it. Like if you didn't do it, then you would break.
Yeah.
You know. And like I think there's so much about like feeling so tied to that motivation, and even it's like if you know, not everyone's so like positive kumbaya about it. It could be like, well, you see what you're looking at and you don't like it. How do you fix it? And you'll do that. You can move from dissatisfaction too.
Yeah.
Like it's either way. It's like either you're motivated so much towards something you feel you need to do, or you see what's around you and you're not like into it. And so like, how do I make something I'm into? Because I feel like I'm tired of looking at what I'm looking at. It's like it's both of those things at the same time. Like I feel like you just have to kind of like trust that gut opinion about what you're looking at in the world, and then kind of go at it and go off when you have the opportunity to.
Yeah, like if you are upset about what the industry is lacking, or you know, then make it yourself.
Yeah.
Like do it yourself. The way that the industry works, you may have like a collaborator that you love, that speaks your language, that you feel like you create some of your best work with, but that doesn't mean that the industry is always going to pair you up. Like you can't always choose who your team is. A lot of magazine work that you do, almost all commercial work that you do, the teams are decided not by the creatives. And you don't always get to have that reoccurring platform to create with your closest collaborators. And that is coming.
Okay.
Some more.
Love.